Hello, I'm Professor Khalid Khan from University of Granada in Spain, and we will talk about a letter to the editor. In other words, comments or correspondence to be published in a journal. This is part of what is called post-publication peer review. But as science publication is evolving, the letter to the editor is also evolving. And online journal club platforms, including, for example, Pubpeer, which you see on the screen, offers the opportunity to make comments formally, but outside the standard uh, journal. So we're going to look at that as to how this format of post-publication peer review is developing, and along with it, how the letter to the editor is evolving. To begin with, I'd like to thank the organizers of a recent webinar where I presented this content in an open discussion. And most of what you will see here is also covered in chapters concerning responsible publication in these two books that I have published. For myself, I started career as a medical student in Karachi, Pakistan. On completing medical school, I did some training in Kenya and soon after had my first paper accepted for publication. And then after completing some clinical training in Pakistan, took a journey through 25 years, starting in Canada and passing through various organizations within the UK. I had the opportunity to edit several journals, including as chief editor, the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And in the last 5 years, I have been living in Spain, working at the University of Granada, where I've continued to play a role as an editor. In my own publications, and I have over 600 of these, when you look at the publication type letter, you will find that I have 23 citations in the PubMed database. These include comments written as letter to the editor and replies to comments written about my papers, as well as some standalone comments. So these are the three types of letter to the editor or comments. Here is an example of one of my comments titled uh, Assessing Research Misconduct in Randomized Controlled Trials, and it concerns a publication by a similar name. And within PubMed, you can see that the reply of the author can also be found. And when you see the printed version, either on paper or in PDF form, the letter appears with its title and my name, as you see on the screen, in the section called Letter to the Editor. So, as a reader, we can and should write letters to the editor to challenge authors and to spark debate, and we should expect to have a reply to our letter. This is post-publication peer review. An author undertakes a piece of work, submits that work to a journal. Along with it, there may be a cover letter. This isn't the letter to the editor. The submission itself may be a short communication, sometimes also called a research letter. And this isn't the letter to the editor we are talking about today. Following submission of the article, peer review takes place. The submission is revised, perhaps it is rejected and resubmitted and re-peer reviewed and re-revised, but ultimately it is accepted and published. And this is when readers get access to it and they have an opportunity to undertake post-publication peer review in the form of a letter to the editor. There are some modern verifications to this traditional process. We'll come back to those in a moment. And here, what we can say that apart from the standalone letters unlinked to published articles, in any published article, because not all critical appraisal criteria can be met, and this is because all studies have some flaws, nearly no studies can be completed 100% as planned. And quite apart from this, editors and reviewers themselves do not always have the capacity to pick up weaknesses in studies. So, studies with their flaws get published, and astute readers can pick these up and write letters to the editor. Because there is a room for improvement in interpretation of the findings of the published article, the editors are likely to accept it. And if you pass the journal deadline for receiving a letter to the editor, which is normally 4 to 6 weeks after publication of the article, then the social media online platforms are available to you to make those comments, and we'll come to those in a second. Here is a journal that I edited. We received over 1,500 submissions. The overall acceptance rate was around 12%. But look, for letters, the acceptance rate was over 95%. This is because the published letter helps in the journal impact factor. It helps the author to get a citation, and it improves the professional standing of the author of the letter to the editor. So, in the end, it is a win win situation for all parties. Here is a post on LinkedIn that I posted some years back, highlighting what a letter could contain. Okay, so start by selecting an article that is recently published. Make sure that the letter will arrive at the editor's inbox within the stipulated time, which you will be able to find in the author's instructions in the journal. And start as a standard letter, dear editor, giving the reference to the article you will write about. Say something constructive about this published article. After all, the editor thinks that it's a good thing to have this article in his journal. So it's not a bad idea for you to start your letter with something positive about the publication. And then you can go on to state what you find uh, some some flaw or some error or some deficiency. And you can even use the text written in the published article in inverted commas to identify the area on which you want to comment on. And then you give your comments, giving references and logical argument as to why you think this issue needs further consideration uh, as a justification for why your letter should be published. The references need to be strong references that give a scientific backing to your argument. And once you've written your analysis, then give how this impacts on the interpretation and say something positive in the end, stating how your contribution can help improve the experience for the reader of the journal who picks up this article and then is able to improve their interpretation through your letter. And then simply just add your name and affiliation and press the send button if the email version of your letter is accepted by the journal, or upload it on the journal's submission platform. Here I want to take you through the evolution of the letter to the editor. One of my articles published in 1996, it received several letters to which detailed replies were provided, And the journal editor thought this represented what in the future could be workshops on the internet concerning published papers. And in the PubMed format, all these letters, the reply and the paper appear as you see on the screen. So as an author, I remind you again to be vigilant that you will receive letters to the editor concerning your work, that you may also receive comment on social media, and we'll see them shortly, and that you should reply to them honestly. Uh, Remember, this is 1996 when the internet is beginning to grow. Some years later, 2004, I have another article published, and at this time, the journal permits correspondence concerning publications in an online format. And this format received 70 letters. The journal print version obviously wasn't keen to publish all the 70, so they selected three. But obviously, in their comment, they indicated that there were 70 others in the online version. In a controversial topic, authors can expect lots of comments, and again, they should reply honestly. Here we are moving forward in time, and transition to the internet in science publication is taking place. Fast forward to now, in 2023, an article is retracted from the literature. About this article, an expression of concern is published in 2022, but the original article is published in 2001. It's interesting that the first comments raising concern about this article appear in 2015 in a platform on the internet called Pubpeer. You can see that the comment is referring to image manipulation. So in this type of comment, it's even possible not only to publish text, but also to provide figures. And this same concern is repeated in 2021. And it's only after this that an investigation is carried out and the expression of concern appears and the retraction appears. This happens to be a retraction of the president of Stanford University. So this story also gets into the news media. What I want to highlight from here is that the letter to the editor in its evolved form, published as comment through social media, is a powerful tool to engage in science. The transition by now to internet is near complete. We return back to our traditional model of publication where there is submission, but alongside submission, now we have another thing called preprint. And not only do readers have an opportunity to comment on the published version, but they can in fact comment on the preprint while the standard peer review is ongoing. Therefore, the accepted version can include the reader's comments provided on the preprint. And of course, after publication, there can be letters to the editor in the journal or comments on blogs, social media, and other platforms. Here is an example of a journal club called Science Guardians, where you can see a comment concerning an article posted. Here I show you a comment concerning one of my papers on Pubpeer, which comments concerning one of my co-authors. When you go to this comment, you see that it's referring to a preprint. This preprint is not yet published. And even before it is published, look what? It has received nearly 4,000 views and 48 comments. Indeed, the authors have the opportunity to improve their final version to be published in light of the comments they receive at the preprint stage. So, what is the etiquette for writing comments in platforms such as Pubpeer? You see a whole detailed guideline that they provide on their website. But from your point of view as a comment author, these are the two most important things that I wish for you to take away. Number one, your comment need to be factually and logically based, and there should be verifiable information or scientific citations backing your argument. And the language used should be polite and neutral, and there should be no derogatory comment made towards the authors of the original papers. This is the way you focus on getting the science interpretation correct and improved through your input via the post publication peer review process. Thank you.